Welcome to today's podcast interview. I brought on Vanessa Alfaro. Vanessa, welcome.
Thank you so much, Heather. I'm happy to be here and excited for our conversation and see what unfolds.
For sure. For those new, please give a little background. Where do you live and what do you do?
Yeah, so based in San Francisco, California, and I'm an anger and communication coach. I have my own private practice business, Vanessa Alfaro, the Empowered Communicator, and I developed a process called the anger algorithm. So I help women release bottled up anger and rage.
Yes. And I do think that I have more female listeners on the podcast, but this goes to YouTube, and my largest community is actually LinkedIn, which is male driven. And so I think it's important to note, obviously I want to hear more about because you are female focused, but what I have experienced, and look, is conditioning and programming. But men are taught since they are little boys to suppress emotions, right? Big boys don't cry, don't be a girl. And so men, it's like they were never taught how. And so whether we're talking men or women, what happens when we suppress our emotions, suppress our anger, and don't express it?
Yeah. So anger is a powerful energy. It's a primary emotion that goes from back in the day, and it's used for protection. And at its worst expression of it, we can become so enraged that we can actually kill. We can kill another human being. But of course, we don't want to do that. Yeah. And we don't even want to, some of us don't want to scream or be mean. And so what do? We hold it in because we don't know what to do with it. We don't want to act it out violently and destructively unless we just can't hold it in anymore. But when we hold in all of that energy, where does it go? It has a capacity to kill. All that energy goes inward. Yeah. And that it's not expressed. And we are energetic beings. All matter comes from part of a sun, including our bodies. We are made of a sun. So we are energy, we're vibrating, we're moving. Part of our experience here, creation wants to experience itself. And so we're meant to feel. And if we're not feeling, guess what? All that energy gets trapped and stuck in our bodies.
And that's what leads to chronic ailments, autoimmune, cancer, and everything else, right? Trapped emotion in the body festers. So let's talk about, and I don't think we even need to judge it, right? Anger just is. It's an emotion. We've also experienced joy, gratitude, happiness, and anger is one on the spectrum. So can we talk about healthy ways to feel it and release it?
Yes. So, and it is true, feelings are emotions, emotion in energy, right? And feelings, we experience it in our body. Feelings just are. They just are. They're not right. They're neither wrong nor right, good nor bad. They just are. Yeah. And they move like nature. Mother Nature comes and goes. So what do you do in that moment when you're fucking pissed? You literally, depending on your environment, the context of your relationship, where you are, you literally have a moment. That moment, if you can catch yourself with awareness, say you give yourself empathy. I'm so angry right now because I need, and you identify what you need. I need respect. I need clear communication. I need transparency. But it is that silent acknowledgement. I am fucking angry right now. Yeah. You have to just own it. You have to own your feelings. Take responsibility. Not, you're making me angry, Heather. You're doing this to me. Keeps us in victim mode. Yeah. No, Heather, I'm fucking angry right now and I need space. Yeah. So it's the feeling and a need. So that's how you take care of it in the moment. Vocalizing it is powerful. It releases and moves the energy. But again, you have to be discerning depending on your environment. Yeah. But even just like a silent acknowledgement, a silent whisper will help you just release some of that pressure.
I love this quote from Peter Crone. He's actually based in LA. And Peter says, people and circumstances come into our life to reveal we're not healed. And so what I love about what you shared is, look, victim mentality, a lot of people have taken that on and blame circumstances, the government, their boss, their spouse for their reality. And look, like Peter Crone says, that is coming into your life. People are playing their quote roles to help you heal. And so I was sharing with you before we started recording, and I'm happy to share this. Like, I don't know why or what it's coming from, but I have felt in the last few months so much anger, frustration, impatience. And a few days ago, I texted my mom because I just woke up kind of feeling like a rage. And I text my mom, I don't know what's going on. I feel like rage. And because I live in Denver, so I'm near the mountains. And she's like, Heather, if you need to, drive out to the mountains and scream, release it, let it out. And so I think that's one way to do it. Sometimes I go for a run. Sometimes, like you're saying, to identify, acknowledge, because I feel like feelings, emotions want to be seen, felt, and released.
Yes, absolutely.
Is
Yeah.
there another process you walk somebody through? Like, that is literally what I do with my coaching clients. I call it acknowledge and release. And so it's acknowledging the feeling, the emotion, like you said, identifying it, whatever. But then it's also, for me, it's replacing it. So it's feeling it, releasing it, naming it, and then choosing something else.
Yes. Yeah. And that's that, our greatest power is choice. And so we get to choose how we feel. And sometimes for me personally, it just wasn't that simple. And because so I developed a process called the anger algorithm. And I grew up in a hostile, violent environment. I was surrounded by rageful adults. I was rageful. I was born into families with rage on both sides, my mother and father. So I had this rage and I expressed it as a young child, as a young adult. I was very depressed and it was explosive and it was scary. And I had so much shame around it. It was like this closeted part of me that I wanted no one to see, feel, or hear, or because it was so, I thought, oh yeah, I'll be rejected. And I engaged in tremendous amount of anger management tools, venting, exercising, all of those things. And it wasn't until I became very devoted to my meditation practice, I was in a really beautiful place in my life, created a lot of safety in my home environment, my rage started to surface. And I thought, and while those things absolutely do help, venting, running, exercising, breathing, counting, whatever you need to do, they weren't enough for me. I felt it in my body and I thought, there has to be a way to express this powerful energy without hurting myself or those around me. There has to be a way. And so I started to research and I developed the anger algorithm, which helps somebody move through the full expression of anger. It interferes with the neurological mechanics causing anger. And so, by the way, algorithm means a step-by-step process. So this is a step-by-step process that my clients engage in. And it's like the full expression of anger. It gets to the root of what's really under your anger. What is this really about?
Yeah. And that's what I love because, our society and culture has taught us to seek externally, to band-aid symptoms and not deal with the problems. And so that's what I'm big on. What I do with my coaching clients is I say we got to pull the weeds and plant new seeds. I don't want to mow the weeds. I don't want to just make your mental garden look prettier. Let's get that junk out of there. So can you potentially share with us what this anger algorithm is and what it's like before, sitting in the shame, guilt, depression, loneliness, isolation, to what it's like on the other side?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I'll give you an overview of it. So, it's my work too is very inward. You are very much looking at yourself.
Yeah.
And, all of us have been raised with judging, blaming, being a victim. Those are egoic thoughts that actually serve us and have protected us. But it's like, at what point will we take responsibility for how we're feeling? And so, as an overview for the algorithm, it's extremely somatic. So I drop my clients into the visualization. I support them in helping them access their anger and rage. And it's a somatic expression where you move through it step by step. I guide it. They write out the steps and then they read it out loud. And this process is done privately. You don't do it with another person. You don't do it at another person. I teach and train my clients how to use it so that they can use it for themselves. And I use it to this day when I am angry, even if it's like something I'm mildly frustrated about, which can be the juiciest material. And that mild frustration, that thought keeps coming back about the situation. Well, she didn't take care of my cat. She didn't take care of my cat. Like, if I'm having this, like, what's the big deal? That's something really juicy going on. So I get to, it goes beyond venting, but I get to what's under it. And I help my clients access the more vulnerable feelings and what they truly want. We get angry because we have an unmet desire and need, and I help them uncover that.
Okay, so something you were talking about with the cat.
Yeah.
Triggers.
Yes.
So let's talk about triggers, because I remember my mom is so wise, but she's been doing this work for decades because she came from her own traumatic childhood, right? And didn't want that for my brother and myself. But I remember years ago, like probably in my 20s or before, she said, like if you're in an argument or you're upset over something, that was more like a trigger. That's not the issue at hand. That triggered a much deeper thing going on. So I haven't been in a romantic relationship for a minute, but as I know what it's like when you're dating someone or, a serious long-term relationship, and the little tiffs and fights you're fighting about are not what you're mad about.
No.
So can we talk about triggers?
Yes. The shit that pisses us off, and then our most beloved fucking triggers the fuck out of us, right? It's like the person we love the most, closest to us, the most intimate, and we each know how to push each other's buttons. So we are drawn to people because we are on similar frequencies from our childhood. Yeah. And souls come together to work things out, to work out our stuff. And so these triggers, it's not really about him picking up his socks. And especially if you as a woman, you're like picking up his shit after him because you think it's your duty, but you don't really want it. And it's like, how many fucking times do I have to ask you to pick up your socks? There's something much deeper going on. And what a lot of us women, and what I know from my own personal experience too, being in relationships, is we want support. And it's so vulnerable to like get to the root of like, why am I so enraged that he won't pick up his socks? I really need support from him. But here's the thing. What does that even look like for you? What would support mean to you? And maybe it's just, like you could not care less about the socks, but maybe that support is he's going to cook dinner for you tonight and clean the dishes and just like draw a bath for you and just put you to bed and love hard on you. Maybe that's the support. So it's deep. Yeah.
Well, and something you shared with me is that anger is a gateway to self-love.
Yes.
And you know what else I found? Everybody's got their numbing agent, their vice, scrolling on social, drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping addiction, binge eating. We all got our thing.
Yep.
But how would you offer somebody who is now aware of their vice that if they could just feel it and do that internal work, they no longer have to feel that thing that they're running from.
Well, that thing that they're running from with anger, it's like you're going to run towards it. Yeah. And I know that everyone's like, who the fuck wants to do that? Like, I don't want to run towards my trauma and wounding. I'd rather stay checked out. And a lot of people choose that path, and that's their right.
Yeah.
And if it also is coming at a serious cost to your health and well-being, serious cost to your intimacy and relationships, it's like, well, when will you decide to look inward? And so anger, what happens is those triggers are all rooted in our wounding from our childhood. And so if you give yourself that chance and the courage and the self-trust and say, if I can heal this one little moment from my childhood and really be with that little inner one and just embrace that little one who's so benevolent and feel the feelings that little one couldn't feel at the time, but be willing to feel them now. That's where the self-love comes in, because you are embracing your inner child with so much love, and you are loving you, because we all have parents and we all have caretakers, and they did the best they could. And they also made mistakes and fell short in many ways. And we carry that in our lives. Like, we want to be taken care of. We want something. It's like we're looking for others and things outside of us to fill the void. And to fill the void is to feel yourself. Feel it. Feel the little one and connect and be the benevolent mother, father, and parent that you always wanted for your inner child, that perhaps your parents didn't meet for you. So it's a huge step in self-responsibility and self-empowerment.
That's what I love, is the self-empowerment. Something that came to mind when you were just sharing that is, as an example, somebody who overeats is literally trying to fill a void. They want to feel full, right?
Yes.
Or they're numbing out, and the only way is to suppress, and they do that by eating. Can we talk a bit about, and look, like, you're right, the only way past it is what I say is through it. Like, you got to feel it to heal it.
Absolutely.
This is not easy work, but if you want freedom, if you want inner peace, if you want happiness, we're telling you, like, this is the path. So can we talk a little bit more about what it means for, that inner child, that self-love and self-compassion, because we have so many versions of ourselves all in this body?
Yes. Yeah. So, connecting to our young one, even that in and of itself is a process, because as children, all of us have gone through some sort of trauma. And I know there's different degrees of it, but not only have we gone through trauma, we inherited trauma, generational trauma. This is a traumatic life to survive. And so this inner child is, when you think about a child and how precious and sacred this little one is, and how innocent they are, and playful and creative. And then that thing happens to them, and they can't process it. We can't process it as children. Yeah. So what do? Our egoic self is like, I'm bad. Something's wrong with me. I'm ugly. I'm an embarrassment. We turn whatever happened onto ourselves, and it becomes very nuanced, very subtle self-abuse. And so so then we move on through life, we grow up, we have all these patterns and behaviors that we created for ourselves to survive. And we have lost that connection to the innocent one in us. We all have this benevolent innocence. And so I've done so much work in therapy, my coaching, you name it, I've done it all. And
Yeah.
so I work deeply with my inner child, to connect to her. And I remember when I first started this connection, there was a like, I don't know if I want to be close to her. I feel actually angry towards her. So it takes time. And your inner child is the key. It is the key to that self-love and to that healing. And so it's turned into this wonderful compassion for yourself and for your life and what you've been through.
Yeah.
And so that self-compassion, that self-love, feeling all of that, it ends the addictive behaviors. Because that addiction shit, it's like that is deeply connected to rage.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to feel. And the addictive behavior is very much like, fuck you, don't tell me what to do. This is my life. And if I want to destroy myself, I fucking will. But it's like,
Yeah.
And so releasing the rage, releasing the anger helps you connect to your inner child.
Okay, so I have a few notes on this.
Yes.
First of all, what just came to mind, I did ayahuasca a couple years ago. I just wanted to experience it. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
And they actually, a Colombian tribe comes to Denver. A buddy of mine did it in Estes Park. I did it in the kind of rural place. But anyway, the message that came to me the first night, the second dose was, and I went through so much discomfort. Like I was curled up, fetal position. I was like sick. And then I remembered before we started the event that one of the meditation assists said to surrender and ask for help. And in that moment, because it had been going on for a while, I was so much discomfort. And I did. I surrendered on, we were laying on these 4-inch mats. I surrendered on my mat and literally just like let go into my mat. And I asked for help. And in that moment, literally this serpent came out of my gut. Serpent snake came out of my stomach. I had this cleansing white waterfall, this release, this peace. And the message, here's where I want to share. The message that came to me is all suffering is self-imposed.
Yes.
And all suffering begins from thought. And what you just shared, which kind of triggered all this for me. Look, we all had those traumatic events and experiences. I am not diminishing any of that. However, like you said, at that young age, when something happened, we didn't have the brain function to analyze and be logical that it wasn't our fault. And so if in that moment we created this story that we're not worthy, we're not enough, we're not worthy of love. And so that now leads to, in our adulthood, self-sabotage and self-destruction because of that deep-rooted belief, I'm not worthy and I'm, or I'm not enough.
So that frequency right there, I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy, means I'm going to treat myself like shit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use drugs and I'm going to have sex and I'm just be like, fuck the world, because that we're being ruled by that frequency of unworthy, unlovable. It's so painful. It's so sad. It's so sad. And it's like, and I love mindset work, paradigm shift work, changing your thoughts. To do that, though, on the deep and on the real, you have to change your feelings. You have to be
100%.
with the deepest, darkest part of your feelings so you can really reprogram those thoughts on a cellular level. Yeah.
And I've gotten to experience that. So I did a full immersion 7-day event with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And in these meditations, like not only you're going to come up against yourself, but what he shares is you have to sit through the fire of discomfort. Those triggered emotions, those low vibe, I don't give them a title, but those triggered emotions. So shame, guilt, fear, anger, frustration, and patience. Those are the emotions to overcome. And so that's what Dispenza teaches is you got to sit through the fire of discomfort. How I would say it is you got to feel it to heal it. But you're 100% right. Like our thinking mind is just the conscious, the 5%, the top tip of the iceberg. It's the emotions, the feelings, the habits, the memories in the body, the subconscious, which is where the work is to be done. So now I want to share, because I know that's a lot, and like this is uncomfortable, but like in order to get that inner peace and freedom, that's the work. So can you please share on the other side what is possible when you feel it, release it, and you could still be triggered, but it's going to be a lot less, right?
Absolutely.
So share what it's
Absolutely.
like on the other side.
Okay. So yes. So yeah, and you did ask that earlier. Um, yeah. So you go through the darkness.
Yeah.
There has to be another side. There is another side. It's like a law in the universe. Like
Yeah.
there's always the other side.
Yeah.
Every opposite has an equal, and it's equal measure. So you go through it. And what I've experienced personally, what my clients, it's like a sense of relief. There's a lot of like relief in the heart, around the chest, in the throat. And so it's the somatic part of my work gives someone the sense of relief and clarity, so much clarity about what's happening for them, what they want, what they're going to say, how they're going to address the thing that is bothering them in their relationship. So there's so much goodness and richness and juiciness. And then over time, you use the algorithm. It's a lifelong tool, because anger doesn't go away. This is not about making it go away. This is about like, oh yeah, I'm angry. I'm going to work through this. I can get clear on what's going on, take care of myself, nurture myself, and then have a conversation and repair and move forward. It really is about deepening that inner deep self connection, so that then that reverberates out into your environment and deepening your relationships, and then being really discerning, like, is this relationship, is it even like necessary in my life? Like, is this relationship too toxic? Maybe I need to really think about what's going on here, what needs to shift for me.
Yeah.
Or it could really deepen the relationship, bring you, there's so much vulnerability in this work. And it's that vulnerable connection it's what really will connect us, really connect us in a profound way, and differentiate us in a healthy way, so that we're no longer codependent, that toxic codependency stuff that happens. But it's like, there's this understanding and mutuality of each other in our greatness. And so it can go in that direction to really bring you together, or it could be like, you know what, it's time to go.
Yeah. I was sort of chuckling because I don't know, it came to mind, but it made me think of like 50 Shades of Anger.
You're right.
And I think there is a spectrum, because I feel like anger at the deep root could also be seen as frustration and impatience, because those are still like, they're kind of all in the same family. But you know what? Something else that, again, Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches is the refractory period. So you're right. We're emotional beings. We're going to experience emotions, but how long you fall down that rabbit hole, or the refractory period, like something happened last week and you're still pissed about it. Well, you can choose, by doing this inner work, to feel it and heal it. And maybe that only lasts a couple hours. Or you get to a point that you got that trigger and you felt it and it lasts a few minutes, rather than years, or it becomes now a mood or a temperament, and like, that person's just bitchy or angry.
Yes.
It doesn't have to go that far.
Right. I mean, with the algorithm, from my client's experience, my experience is like, I'm not stewing about something for days. I'm more aware of like, oh yeah, I'm actually angry right now, instead of realizing days later, hey, I'm fucking pissed about this. But it's like, oh no, I'm angry. I need to work through the algorithm. So there's just so much more self-awareness, self-responsibility, and taking care of yourself instead of dragging it out, instead of stewing and ruminating and like prolonging it and not getting to it. It's like, Once I do the work through the algorithm and I have a conversation, if that's necessary, it is over. It's done. I'm done thinking about it. I'm done.
Well, and was it Buddha that says, holding on to anger is expecting to burn or hurt someone else when it's only hurting you?
Absolutely.
Do you talk much about that? Comes to mind. Do you talk much about forgiveness?
Yes.
But a lot of it ultimately is self-forgiveness, right?
Absolutely.
Wait,
Self-forgiveness.
do you know
What?
Ho'oponopono?
Honopono.
Ho'oponopono? Do you know
No.
this? Oh, okay. So I don't know why this is top of mind. So Ho'oponopono is this ancient Hawaiian tradition. And
Mm,
I think it's a simple 4-step process. So again, when these emotions, anger, when that kind of stuff comes up, when you're triggered, A Course in Miracles talks about we're either coming from fear or love. Like that's it. There's different shades, but fear or love. So anytime it's not love, it's fear-based. And Ho'oponopono, this 4-step process is to yourself, the self-love, self-compassion, inner work. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
mm,
And you know what? When I've asked clients that, self-love, they're kind of dumbfounded and like, oh, I never really thought of that. And most people have a very low self-love because of this identity and all this junk we've compounded. But when you have self-love, like a saying when it comes to, let's say, weight or your figure, eat like you love yourself, think like you love talk like you love yourself. And
yeah,
someone who really has that deep sense of self-love would not allow them to fester and feed on that anger, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And it really does go back to the inner child. When we're steeped in addiction or whatever we are doing to avoid our pain,
Mm,
there is that frequency of unworthy, unlovable,
mm,
and it's self-abuse.
yeah.
And so when you connect to your inner child and really realize the impact of your life, and then the patterns and the behaviors that we absolutely want to be grateful for because it kept us alive,
Yeah.
but perhaps they no longer serve us now,
Yeah.
right? Like these patterns and behaviors. But when we realize, oh my gosh, I've been so mean to my little one, I am so sorry. And will you forgive me, like that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then because I know if you cannot forgive yourself, as we know this, right? The cliche, you cannot forgive the people who hurt you. So if you bypass yourself and you're like, yeah, I forgive that person, I've done my work, I forgive them,
Mm,
you got to really be honest with yourself
yeah.
and say, hey, do you forgive yourself for that memory, that traumatic moment, and all the self-abuse that happened for you? Do you forgive yourself from that?
Yeah. And I think even that to me feels like it's that self-compassion. You know what? I did the best I could at the time with what I knew or
Yeah,
had. And now that I know better, I choose to do better.
yeah. And if you don't, you still love yourself
Yeah.
and hold yourself, and like, this is still here. There's still some more work to do. I can't get whatever this painful thing that I'm doing, I can't get it under control. Thank you. It's showing me what I still need to work on.
Yes. Yes. So I'm curious, what are some daily practices or rituals you have to stay mindful and intentional? And, like, because there is so much good on the other side. I am sure it's not you're sitting in the funk every day, but you have the tools, you're equipped when and if this stuff comes up. So
Yeah.
ultimately what I'm asking is what are some daily practices and rituals you have to be mindful and intentional?
Yeah, the most important ones for me are waking up in the morning, how I wake up in the morning and how I fall asleep at night. And so I am utterly devoted to my inner child right now. And so in the morning, I have a visualization. I have a little cute lioness that represents my little one, and we connect heart to heart. And I remind her that she gets to be a child, she gets to rest, she gets to play, and we're going to have a really beautiful day. I give gratitude, and I do that with my little one, with myself, connecting heart to heart, the light within us, sharing that love, feeling that love, and whatever benevolent beings are present that I call in. And I give thanks for all the blessings in my life. And I do that before I go to bed, and I do it when I wake up.
I love that. So I'm curious, because we touched on this at so many different angles.
Yes.
What do you feel is the key takeaway you want listeners to get on this idea of, anger is our gateway to self-love and freedom?
All those little moments, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I'm annoyed, or you're just outright angry, just give yourself permission to say, I'm angry. I'm angry right now, and here's what I need. And you have to identify what it is that you really need. And it comes from a very energetic, benevolent place of needs. I'm talking about love, collaboration, cooperation, affection, communication, joy, these needs that many of us don't think we deserve. So it's like, just acknowledge, I am irritated. And it's very important to say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling angry because I need space. I'm feeling angry because I need rest. I'm feeling frustrated because I need clear communication and cooperation. Yeah.
This is how my brain works. I kind of just wrote down a formula, and for me it feels like to go from that victim
Yes.
state into self-empowered
Yes.
is the self-awareness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's tricky because, and I'll say it for myself. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm suppressing anger right now. I'm like, whoa, that's still worming its way in. But I have the awareness, oh, I'm suppressed. Oh yeah, I'm actually pissed about this. It is that awareness to be connected to yourself in every moment. Like, yeah, what's going on here for me? Yeah. And it's just that self-acknowledgement. I'm really depressed right now. I'm really sad. What do I need?
And definitely yeah, go ahead.
That's the key takeaway. Like, just own, be with, feel your experience.
Feel it to heal it.
That's right.
Yes. All right. I'd love to wrap up the interview, so I have a couple of rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What is a quote or motto that you live by?
Your soul will reveal whatever needs to be healed.
What is a book you're currently reading or highly recommend?
Gene Keys by Richard Rudd.
What's that
cover
about?
to cover. Oh, Gene Keys. Woo! It's like my spiritual Bible these days. It will open up everything in you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yes.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, advice. To trust that everything will pass and every moment is perfect.
And that's such a great note to end on. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Heather. I had a beautiful time. So much fun with you. Thank you.